So good to have you join us today. Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Lee Ji-yoon in Seoul. We have a lot on our plate today, so let's get started with a look at today's highlights. The U.S. Federal Reserve's November minutes signal that the Fed is poised to raise rates in December. The delayed appointment of a new economic leader is raising concerns that it may hamper progress on next year's policy blueprint. We'll sit down with an expert to talk about this. But first, Korea's household debt rose to an all-time high in the third quarter. According to preliminary data from the Bank of Korea, the country's overall household debt jumped to roughly 1.29 quadrillion won, or roughly $1.1 trillion in the July to September period, swelling by $32 billion on quarter. Despite the government's tighter lending rules to contain the ever-growing household debt load, borrowing still increased, particularly at non-bank institutions like insurance companies and savings banks, which saw a $9.4 billion rise. Authorities say, taking into account October and November figures, Korea's household debt will likely surpass the 1.3 quadrillion won mark this year. And the latest in the expanding investigation into the power abuse scandal, prosecutors on Thursday raided the Finance Ministry and Korea Customs Service, as well as Lotte and SK corporations. This over allegations that President Park's confidant Choi Soon-sil tried to influence the government's licensing of lucrative duty-free businesses in return for donations to two government-linked foundations that Choi allegedly controlled. Prosecutors also raided Samsung Group's headquarters and the National Pension Service on Wednesday, on suspicions that the president ordered the pension service to back Samsung's merger plan last year in return for donations to the two foundations. Meanwhile, a Seoul court has rejected prosecutors' request for an arrest warrant for former Presidential Secretary Cho Won-dong, who is suspected of pressuring CJ Group to fire its vice chair in late 2013 because the entertainment company aired TV shows deemed critical of President Park. And now turning to today's market action, Korean shares didn't fare so well on Thursday, with both indices seeing losses. The benchmark Kospi shed 0.84% to close at 1,971.26, while the secondary Kosdaq lost over 1% again, tumbling 1.27% to close below the 600 mark. This is after U.S. stocks showed mixed performance overnight ahead of the Thanksgiving holiday. The Dow Jones Industrial Average ended up 0.31% on Wednesday, hitting yet another record at 19,083 points. While the S&P 500 also extended its rally, edging up 0.08%. Gains in industrial stocks and the oil and gas sector gave these indices a boost, but over on the Nasdaq, losses in tech shares weighed down performance, sending it south by 0.1%. Minutes of the U.S. Federal Reserve's November policy meeting suggests that it's highly likely we'll be seeing the Fed push up rates in December. Our Hwang Ho-jun reports.
The U.S. Federal Reserve has agreed that a rate increase is appropriate relatively soon. That's according to the minutes of the most recent meeting of the Federal Open Market Committee, which was held around a week before the U.S. presidential election. According to the minutes, released Wednesday, most voting members agreed that it would be appropriate to raise the target range for the federal funds rate relatively soon. Some argue the move should be imminent, arguing that a hike is needed at the next meeting to preserve the Fed's credibility. They cited strength in domestic consumption, new records in stock indexes, low unemployment, and somewhat higher inflation in recent months, as signs the economy is on the right track. The minutes also state, however, that voting members saw an equal risk that the economy would over or undershoot their forecasts. In an appearance before Congress last week, Fed Chairman Janet Yellen used the same language to hint at an upcoming rate hike. She said the bank could act relatively soon if the economy continued to improve. Some experts also pointed to the results of the presidential election as a reason for a rate hike. They say that if Donald Trump makes good on his campaign promises for tax cuts and big spending on infrastructure projects, it will most likely increase the federal deficit, which would likely translate to more borrowing and that could put upward pressure on inflation. Analysts say the Fed will almost certainly raise rates by a quarter point at its December 13th to 14th gathering, barring a major upset to the economy. The Fed's benchmark rate is currently in a range of 0.25% to 0.5%. Hwang Woo-jun, Business Daily.
About this time tomorrow, the much-awaited Black Friday sale will be well underway in the United States. But it's not just the U.S., because retailers in Europe and China are also capitalizing on the pre-holiday shopping bonanza. And shoppers here in Korea are ready to spend. Our Eunice Kim tells us more.
Office worker Park Soo-kyung browses for new clothes for her nearly 2-year-old son. She's looking on the websites of U.S. retailers ahead of what promises to be hours of doorbuster deals.
Buying children's clothes for each season can get expensive, so I wait to buy it around this time. The quality is good and so is the price.
The day after America's Thanksgiving Day, Black Friday has long been considered the start of the Christmas shopping season. Coupled with the newer Cyber Monday and, in December, Green Monday, coined by eBay to mark its best year-end sales day, the coming weeks are chock full of opportunities to spend at better prices. But it's not just on U.S. retail sites that Koreans will be buying. According to Maltail, a top domestic shipping company that accommodates such overseas direct purchases, while shoppers will head to U.S. outlets for branded clothing and accessories, they'll go to German sites for home appliances, to Chinese sites for affordable electronics, and to Japanese sites for products related to animations. What stands to be the runaway winner of this year's Black Friday buys?
We're seeing an order concentration in small household appliances like handheld vacuum cleaners and robotic vacuums.
Retailers at home are not sitting on their hands either.
We're offering great end-of-the-year prices to push out the last of our inventory.
Before hitting the buy button, online shoppers should check that their purchase is not banned in Korea and be mindful of details such as taxes and shipping to ensure that it's not the Grinch that knocks on Christmas's door. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
Samsung Electronics made nearly 4 out of 10 televisions that were sold online in the United States this year. According to market research by 1010 Data, Samsung topped online TV sales in the market with a near 40% share from January to September. America's Vizio came in second with 17.5%, followed by LG Electronics and Sony. The data analytics firm says that Samsung Smart TV features won over American consumers, which led to a combined $3.2 billion worth of sales from last October to this September. This marked a 40% increase from the same period last year, with an especially active online market in November and December due to Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and the Christmas season. With the country engulfed in a massive power abuse scandal, other state affairs have mostly ground to a halt. This is true on the economic front as well. With no clear leader on the front lines, the government is struggling to establish next year's economic policy blueprint, set to be announced next month. Our Lee Ju-young has more.
Will Korea's Financial Services Commission Chief Im Jong-yong take over as the new top economic policymaker, or will the current Finance Minister Yoo Il-ho continue on with his term? It's been roughly 3 weeks since the presidential office of Cheongwade appointed Im to succeed Yoo. But with no parliament hearings scheduled to move forward with an official appointment, the country's economic team has been functioning under an awkward leadership.
We desperately need an economic control tower responsible for issues like corporate restructuring and structural reforms.
Ever since the entire nation has been rocked by the influence peddling scandal involving President Park Geun-hye and her longtime confidant Choi Soon-sil, government measures to restructure ailing industries have made little progress. In terms of policy priorities, Im and Yoo also have different ideas, adding to the confusion. Im, for one, has vowed to curb speculative investments in real estate after he takes office to aggressively tackle the country's bloated household debt load. He has also argued for expansionary fiscal policies. Yu, on the other hand, has been cautious about increasing government spending, expressing concern about the country's long-term fiscal health. The export-driven economy, internally constrained by sluggish consumption and investment, is also surrounded by growing external risks as well, with trade protectionist sentiments growing worldwide. Experts say whether it be Im or Yu, the economic leadership needs to be established as soon as possible to contain growing risks and drive the economy forward. Lee Ju-young, Business Daily.
And calls for a strong economic leadership are getting even louder as emerging markets, including Korea, brace for the effect of U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's new policies, as well as the associated risks both at home and abroad. For more on this, Professor Kim Se-won from Ewha University joins us in the studio today. So good to see you.
Pleasure to be here.
All right, so Finance Minister Yoo Il-ho, who also doubles as Deputy Prime Minister for Economic Affairs, is in a quite awkward position right now because President Park has actually named Im Jong-yong, the head of Financial Services Commission, to replace Yoo earlier this month. So what exactly is going on right now?
Well, in the last cabinet reshuffle, President Park appointed Mr. Lim, the chairman of Financial Services Commission, as a successor of Mr. Liu, the finance minister. But because of the political turmoils, the official confirmation by Congress has been delayed almost forever. So virtually we have two people at the top level of Department of Finance in Korea.
All right, so with the lack of economic leadership right now, what are some of the pending economic problems that need to be addressed within this year or the next?
Well, there are lots of decisions that should be made in Korea right now. Inside of the Korea, we have bailouts of the shipping industry and shipbuilding industry. And this kind of bailout program is very hard to enforce without the leadership and coordination power of finance minister. Out of the country, we have regime changes from the United States and Brexit and the interest rate hikes of the United States and so on. So for being well prepared for these external shocks, we need to have a leadership of finance minister.
All right, well, what we know for sure is that the country's economic policies will change depending on who gets appointed as the new finance minister. But we also hear, as we heard in the report, that Im and Yu, they both have different economic philosophies, right?
Right. Personally, I believe that both are great people in terms of experience and knowledge in the economy.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Right, but there is a big differences in policy styles between the two people. The difference particularly comes in fiscal policy and household debt. Mr. Liu, finance minister, does not support expansionary financial expansion, because that increases that of the government.
Okay.
Instead, he is kind of soft to household debt. On the other side, Mr. Lim, the chairman of Financial Services Commissions, supports expansionary fiscal policy, but he is pretty much strict on increasing household debt.
All right, so with this awkward cohabitation of Im and Yu continues, at this point I'm wondering, are there any countries that have experienced what Korea is going through right now?
Well, I think the good example might be Spain and Belgium.
Spain and Belgium, okay.
And these countries are experiencing still political difficulties, but they have a great economic recovery thanks to stable management of the governments and timely decisions of the governments. For example, Spain's economic growth is 3.2% in this year, which is one of the highest between EU member countries.
Okay. Well, shifting our focus a little bit, I heard that the average term for Korea's finance minister is shorter compared to that of advanced nations. Now, why so? And also, what kind of impact will this shorter term for the finance minister have on the Korean economy?
Well, personally, I'm so glad that you raised that issue because that is related to quite a few staggering policies in Korea. For example, the finance minister's professional experience and knowledge are not much respected in Korea. Instead, they are considered as a part of the politics. So when there is something like big accidents, serious accidents and political events, they are required to resign from the position because they are considered as a part of the politics. So I think that is related to not continuous and steady policies in Korea.
But then despite all this political scandal that's going on right now, I think the most important thing right now is for us to have a top economic official picked out and deal with all these pending issues, right? So what are some of the other tasks remaining for Korea as this year is quickly coming to a close?
Well, I think until the official confirmation by Congress of the new finance minister, it is very important Mr. Liu and Mr. Lim cooperate each other. And on the other side, Korean bureaucrats, the part of the administration, should be more progressive in implementing the policies. And by doing that, we can more stabilize the economy.
All right, let's hope to see more of that. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you very much.
And that does it for today. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with more at the same time, same place for your Business Daily. Until then, goodbye.